you have to think of this 13-year-old kid who's lived a very comfortable life, but then all of a sudden, he's the one child of 5 to be banished to this austere life. Goodbye luxury, goodbye mom and dad, brothers and sisters, hello drill sergeant.
The New York Military Academy was no nonsense, heavy on the discipline. Over the years, home to the children of gangster John Gotti and Cuban dictator Fulgencio Batista.
It was a very austere, very scary place. I was homesick. I was crying hysterically. In fact, I was crying so much the first couple of nights they put me in the infirmary.
We were in a culture of hazing at the military school. Everyone, I mean, that's just the way it was.
If you got hit, you might have gotten slammed against the wall. You got put artificially into fights.
But the rough and tumble didn't seem to bother Donald. He thrived.
He liked it. Apparently, he really liked it. He liked the accountability, he liked the kind of clarity of it, and he liked that there was a medal and a prize for everything.
He was a star athlete. He claimed he could have played pro baseball. But his classmates agree he was proudest of winning the ultimate accolade in an all-boys school. He was named Ladies' Man in the school yearbook. Hugh Hefner, the publisher of Playboy, was a role model for many of the boys.
Yeah, he had a very Hugh Hefner, Playboy magazine view of success.
The young cadets learned a lot from Playboy magazine and what they called barracks talk.
In fact, our biggest advice in our lives came from Playboy magazine. That's how we learned about women. So that was all of my adolescence. And that's why getting out of military school was difficult. You had to realize that you couldn't just follow the Playboy philosophy.
They would graduate and grow up. But Donald's classmates say in some ways, he hasn't changed at all.
The things that we talked about at that time in 1964 really are very close to the kind of way he talks now. I hear these echoes of the barracks life that we had and that we grew out of.
Over 90% of serial killers are white males, usually from low to middle-class backgrounds. These men are usually intelligent, but as students have difficulty focusing. Most experience a traumatic childhood, often having been abused psychologically, physically, or sexually. Typically, they may be raised in unstable families, often with criminal, psychiatric, and alcoholic histories. Raised in such families, these children tend to spend much time on their own, and as a result, many practice animal cruelty at a young age.
Sometimes where, you might not have extreme forms of physical abuse, there is always some kind of extreme emotional or psychological abuse that these young children are subjected to, which really warps them out of shape. I mean, in one way or another, they come to associate the infliction of pain with pleasure.
For example, John Wayne Gacy had an alcoholic father who often beat him. John Sr. would frequently insult the child, practically eliminating his self-confidence, which led to later difficulties John Jr. would have with his masculinity. As an adult, John began to rape and kill, eventually burying 29 bodies in a crawl space under his house. As Gacy was quite popular in his community, his neighbors couldn't believe that John was capable of such atrocities.
Most people who suffer as children grow out of it and become upstanding, decent human beings. But serial killers who've suffered as children repeat the same mistakes over the course of their lives. They can't make the transition into adulthood. They have trouble making the transition in middle age. And at the very time in their lives when they feel they should be reaching the pinnacle of success, they find that they're sliding downhill fast. They want to feel important. They want to feel special. They crave the sense of power and dominance and control, but they simply can't achieve it in any respectable way. And so they kill and they torture and they sodomize and dismember, and that makes them feel good about themselves. Special. They crave the sense of power and dominance and control, but they simply can't achieve it in any respectable way. And so they kill and they torture and they sodomize and dismember, and that makes them feel good about themselves.
And when you see these towns and when you see these thugs being thrown into the back of a paddy wagon, you just see them thrown in, rough. I said, please don't be too nice.
And he wants to be able to say, this is the way it's going to be. I mean, we've seen him just recently call for an investigation as to whether or not the license of NBC should be taken away because they did something he didn't like. But taking away the license of a television network. He does not believe or like the idea of a free press. In fact, he calls it a fake press. He doesn't believe that, he doesn't believe in obviously unions. He doesn't believe that people should have collective bargaining rights. All these things that we believed in for a long time, he doesn't believe in. He hates obviously all welfare. If he could, I'm sure he would reduce Social Security.
These pesky entitlements.
Pesky entitlements.
Yeah.
And you think of your 80-year-old mother, your 90-year-old grandmother, not the only reason that they've able to have some kind of sustenance and live quasi-decently is because we've had this for so many years. That's the danger here, that his lack of respect for the things that we all believe in is very, very dangerous. And this movie asks the audience, take him seriously. Stop calling him an idiot. Stop saying that he's crazy. He's crazy like a fox.
You have to dominate. If you don't dominate, you're wasting your time. They're going to run over you. You're going to look like a bunch of jerks. You have to dominate. So I say that, and the word is dominate. If you don't dominate your city and your state, they're going to walk away with you. And we're doing it in Washington and D.C. We're going to do something that people haven't seen before. But you're going to have total domination. And then you have to put them in jail.
So what the movie is more of a look at the Trumpian times that we're in, how we got here, because he didn't just fall out of the sky. Mm-hmm. What did we do? What was our part in this that allowed this to happen?
Another thing about how perspectives change over time. Bobby Rush, member of Congress, said the other day, I'm ashamed that I voted for the 94 crime bill. You ashamed of that bill?
Not at all. And in fact, I drafted the bill, as you remember.
I know that.
The reason we're still talking about it today is the federal government essentially subsidized states across the country to build more prisons. So 25 years later, the crime bill is being debated.
You stood up and used that tough on crime, phony rhetoric. That bill was a huge mistake.
There's no question that crime bill contributed to America's mass incarceration problem.
1994 crime bill, we had a gigantic epidemic in America of violence, particularly in African American communities. The notion was overwhelmingly supported. It was supported by the Black Caucus in the United States Senate by and large.
And the reason that the crime bill comes up so often is, today in 2019, it is hard for so many people to understand why the federal government would pay states to incarcerate more people, given the devastating consequences we know that incarceration causes. But at the time, policymakers felt the need to respond to what they felt was uncontrolled violence, and this bill was the way that policymakers, that Congress could say, we're do something about it.
Violent crime and the fear it provokes are crippling our society. The crime bill before Congress gives you a chance to do something about it, a chance to be tough and smart.
Some creatures goes of the Gotherian, goes of the destructor, Volga Sildroha, the traveler has come. Choose and perish.
What do you mean, choose? We don't understand.
Choose the form of the destructor.
Oh, I get it. Oh, very cute. whatever we think of. If we think of J. Edgar Hoover will appear and destroy us, okay? So empty your heads. Empty your heads. Don't think of anything. We've only got one shot at this.